How's it going, everyone? Thank you so much for joining us on week 2 of our series, So That All May Know. Last week we had Pastor Caleb come and share, and he just reminded us that it's important to keep a watchful eye for the little God moments in our life, because as we keep a watchful eye on those, we soon realize that they add up and accumulate to actually really large things that he's doing in our life. And nothing God does is by coincidence. So I hope that you were encouraged by that. And today we've got my good friend, Mr. Dr. Scott Abrams. I met Scott here at the, well, no, I met you at church.
Probably at church.
Our friendship has blossomed, here at the gym to the point where, I joke around and I say I wake up to beat Scott Abrams. In fact, quick story. I told your daughter this, but one of the first times I came to the gym, we were doing a Tabata workout, and it was like rowing, air squats, push-ups, and like 2 other movements or something. And I was with Liz. It was Liz, me, and then you were over here on my right. And I tried to keep up with you on the rower, and I did okay. And then we came to the air squats, and it was like 20 seconds on, 40 seconds off, or whatever. But you buried me on the air squats.
I got short legs. I go fast.
I was absolutely demolished. And then push-ups, you destroyed me, and then whatever the other movements were. But it was at that moment that I knew, like, I have to make it my life goal to be better than you.
You've gotten much faster. And you're always much stronger. So
that's true. Yeah. If you hear us coughing a lot, it's because we just destroyed a workout.
Manny does beat me most days. But
I try.
Who won today?
You did, by like 40 seconds.
It's the only reason I got up this morning.
Because you knew you'd win. All right, well, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit so that people can know exactly who you are, where'd you grow up, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so in his little outline, he gave me 5 minutes to tell who I am, and I'm not that interesting. I don't have 5 minutes worth, but from small town South Dakota, I grew up in a Christian home. My father is an evangelical free church pastor. I don't remember not believing in God, believed from a young age. But grew up in a really healthy home. I had a good upbringing, small town. Always understood that I believed in God, but the depth to which that, affected how I lived was, kind of questionable at times. I really understood that I was saved by grace, and grace meant that I didn't really have to do anything. And so kind of just grew up understanding that I could live how I want as long as it wasn't too out there, as long as it didn't really make any waves. So just kind of, had the regular struggles growing up, lust and those kinds of things. But as long as there wasn't any obvious outward manifestation, then I learned that as long as I could keep it quiet, I could kind of do what I wanted. Also kind of, in that environment was a real conservative Christian church. We didn't drink, we didn't smoke. I remember the first time I saw somebody in the church that was smoking outside, I was like, whoa, I think he's not a Christian, And so Christians were people who didn't struggle with drugs or alcohol, and people who did struggle like alcoholics or addicts, they weren't Christians, right? And so I just kind of understood, and I was never taught that. I just kind of understood that looking at the people around me, because we all kind of keep our stuff quiet, right?
Right.
So anyway, I grew up, went to college in St. Paul for a couple years, Northwestern, then back to Augustana and Sioux Falls, went to medical school, residency. And then came to Wilmer. It was my first job out of residency in 2002. Came here to work in the ER for 12 years. So how much more do you want to know?
Kids, wife?
Yeah, so that's important. Whoops.
It's part of who you are.
So Barb, I hope you never see this because I just forgot to mention you guys. Got married right out of med school, right before residency in '99. Barb and I had met at camp right out of high school years earlier and just kept a friendship, and then that's a whole other story. But then had Jake and Maggie. Jake is now 20 and Maggie's 19. Is that right? Yeah. So.
If not, would you say that it was recorded when they were 20 and 19?
Jake is in college at Liberty in Virginia, and Maggie is at the U of A in Tucson.
Great. Yeah. Now you have an incredible story about addiction and overcoming, but can you explain a little bit, just kind of what got you in that position, and then later on we can talk about like kind of getting out of it and continuing to stay.
Yeah, so I mentioned, I kind of grew up with this idea that I could kind of just follow my own appetite as long as it didn't have any, obvious consequences. And so, if I can get away with it and I want to do it, I'm going to do it, and that's just kind of how I grew up. And then Drank a little bit in college, but that was never at least an obvious problem again, because it didn't have any obvious outward manifestations. But in medical school, my last year of medical school, had a thyroid surgery for a thyroid cancer and got pain pills after the surgery for the first time. And I remember the first time I took them, it was just like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And I don't mean to pique your interest in that kind of thing, but there are some of us that just have that reaction to those things. And that's kind of the predisposition we all have towards different things, right? So some of us struggle with this, some of us struggle with that. And the first time I had pain pills, it was I want more. I didn't really have access at that point. So then later in residency, when I was licensed and started having access to medications and could get prescriptions from other people and had a sample closet to get pills from, then that's when I began to struggle. And I would say around 99, when I went to residency, was when I began the struggle with pills. And this went on for about 15 years. So as in all things, it starts out small, you just have one, and then it blossoms over time, right? You indulge a little now, you feel, maybe I shouldn't do that. But the more you do it, the less bad you feel about it. Eventually it just grows and grows and grows. And with addiction, it just consumes your life eventually, right? And so over those 15 years, made 2 previous attempts to address the addiction. I went to outpatient treatment, talked to my wife about it, and made some attempt. Each of those times, I understood that I was supposed to turn to God in my struggle, right? But my idea of faith at that time was just saying, here, God, it's yours. Now take it away, and I don't have to do anything, because that's what grace means, is that I don't have to do anything. And each time, felt you're supposed to change your life now, but didn't. I don't want to go to meetings. I don't want to have to talk about it. I don't have to do anything to change. It's just gone. And of course, it wasn't gone. We're not made perfect when we come to Christ, and so we still all have certain struggles, and mine wasn't gone. And so 2014. Life just fell apart. Just exploded. I was engaging in really destructive behavior to obtain pills. I was manipulating the system to get pills illegally, basically, and for my own consumption. And when that came to light, just everything fell apart. I lost my job in the ER. I had to go to treatment. My marriage is a disaster. Life was a wreck, right? Mm-hmm. And so at that point, how did I get here? And it was really God's fault at that point, right? Because God, I brought this to you. I begged you to take this from me. Why didn't you take this appetite from me? And each time, I prayed to God 1,000 times, take it away. But each time he said, confess, tell your wife, go to treatment, and I wasn't willing to do any of those things. I wasn't willing to change. And if nothing changes, then nothing changes. And so I just kept spiraling until it out of control.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. So I imagine that confessing to Barb wasn't the easiest thing in the world, but what was kind of your mindset going into that? Or, how did you face up to that realization?
Yeah, at that point, just resignation to the fact that my life as I knew it was over, right? So up to that point, I can do it as long as I can get away with it, right? That's my mindset. And so, and this was totally blindsided her. She didn't see it coming, but it was no longer hideable. I was leaving my job, right?
Yeah.
I can't hide that from my wife. I'm going to have to go talk to the state medical board. I'm going to have to, go to treatment. You can no longer hide this. So it's just like, okay, life is over. I have to. And so, worst day of my life, and I'm sure of her life, was just had to tell her, and hey, we're done. And at that point, and this is hard to say, but at that point, our marriage was over. It was like, okay, we're done. In her mind, and my mind too.
Yeah.
I'm out. So, and she's like, you're out.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say are some of the, well, let's put it this way, how has God redeemed that in your life? What were some of the things that you did, and some of the things that you saw him do that kind of helped with that?
So I had to go off to treatment at that point. So I'm out at least of her life. So that gives us some space. At that time, I'm in treatment, and I'm like, I got to get back. I get home to fix my family. I got to come to fix my career. I got to get home to fix my relationship with my wife. And my counselor and my wife and everybody's saying, you can't fix any of that until you work on this,
Yeah.
And so wisely, I just had it one day, and I went to God, and again, I really blamed him. So I just had it out with him one day. Sitting there in treatment was, God, I don't want to keep doing this anymore. My life's a disaster. I hate who I am. I hate what I'm doing. I hate everything about my life. I will do anything to change. And all of a sudden, that was it. Oh, you're willing to do something. You're willing to obey. You're willing to respond to me. And that was the turning point, was I am willing to do what it takes to, Luke 9:23, abandon yourself and follow me every day. I was finally willing to do that. And that was really, personally, the light bulb moment when, okay, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to abandon my addiction. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to follow Christ every day. And that's really what he asked of me is get up every morning, point your life at me first. I still don't live perfectly, but I don't miss a day. I mean, since then I get up every day early, and I got to do my prayers, my meditation, and my reading. And again, it's not what I'm doing, but it's the position I'm putting myself in relation to turning to God every day. And then once I live in that relationship. And he said, if you do that, you'll never come back here. And I haven't. Now, when you get up, so my life is better, right? At this point, okay, I'm sober, I'm in recovery. And of course, hey Barb, I'm in recovery, I'm fine. And she's like, 15 years of this is not undone in a day for her, right? And so that took a lot longer. And that's really her story to tell. But that took much, much longer. And she needed to see me live that for a long, 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 long time before she began to buy into it.
Yeah. I feel like Pastor Caleb and Pastor Josh just shared about that on Sunday. They said that these things, waking up early, the holy habits or whatever, they don't change you, but they put you in that position to be changed. They put you in the position or in the presence of God where a real change can happen. And it almost seems like for you, the main or the big thing is, what does it say? We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. We have to say what has happened and what God has done in our life in order to overcome. That's part of the process. So how now, as you're walking through recovery, or not, you're walking through, I guess it's a process, right? And you're open with that. What does the word of your testimony say? Like, how do you see God in your life today? So you used to see him as, God, I'm going to bring you my problems, fix them. What is your relationship with him now?
Yeah, first of all, every day I get up and I mean, honestly, the first thoughts in my head still are every day, thank you, God, for new life, recovery, for restoration, for salvation. Thank you for forgiving me and giving me another chance. And now that God's done it, now what's my response, right?
Yeah.
And so I, really, what you said is it's not, we're not fixing ourselves, but we're putting ourselves in a position where we're facing God, right? So in my addiction, you're God here. Okay, Don't get a big head.
No, I'm not.
This is what I do in my addiction. I turn my back on God, right? He's not gone. He's still there. God is always faithful. It's what's my response to him, because God, Christ has saved us. Now, what is my proper response? And it's to do this, every day, to live in this relationship. And I kind of forgot what the question was now, but that's my job every day, is to pursue that relationship. God has pursued us and he loves us. He wants us to pursue him back.
Yeah.
Right? What was the question?
I can't even remember, but that was a good response, I'm sure. I'm sure it's a very doctoral response. Yeah. Okay, so why don't you explain or talk through today, like obviously struggling with or recovering from addiction, but then there's other things on top of it, right? Being a father, being a husband, being a doctor, being a friend. All those things can weigh on you. They can pull you down and stuff, but how do you, other than waking up in the morning, or maybe it is waking up in the morning, how do you remind yourself of God's faithfulness on a regular basis?
Yeah, I think you said it at the beginning. You talked about looking at it. I mean, that's the choice, because God is always there. God is always faithful. But what's my response to him? And to choose to live in that relationship every day, because getting sober, as it turns out, pills weren't my only problem in life, right? I mean, that was just a symptom of this selfishness. Again, back to my childhood. If I can get away with it, I'm going to do it, because that's how I live my life. And that's really all of us, is we just want to live our way. And the Christian life is the exact opposite. Every day denying self and following Christ. And let me just add this too. He does change our appetites. I know people that get that instant miracle. By the way, if you're struggling with pornography or drugs or alcohol or whatever you're struggling with, we all go to God and we say, just take it away. And there are people that do get that miraculous, boom, it's gone. That always kind of annoys me, by the way, those people, because I didn't get that. I didn't get that. And so God changed me. It was the same miracle. It just didn't happen the way I thought it would. But over time, I saw the miracle of change as I pursued Christ. So Peter didn't get to walk on water until he stepped out of the boat, right? So there's the step of obedience, and then you get to see the revelation, the miracle. And that's how it happened for me, was in my obedience. I don't struggle with drugs today. But to your question, I struggle with other things. As it turns out, I'm still selfish. I'm still prideful. I've still got appetites for self-destructive things, and I still fail. I think now, though, trying to live by faith and living in recovery is trying to keep my eyes on Christ every day. And so every day, at the end of the day, laying down at night and saying, okay, what did I do well today? What did I not do well today? What do I need to work on tomorrow? And again, not all about me, but what do I need to bring to Christ and be willing to change? So it's like you said it's an ongoing process. Faith and recovery are not a decision we made once when we were 5 or whatever. This isn't, we're saved at that point, but it's this continual growth and continual change. We've not arrived yet. Even Paul said, I press on. And it's this continual process of knowing Christ more and living in that relationship, because it's a relationship that changes us, right?
Right. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you brought up the Peter walking on water thing. I've been thinking about that a lot recently, and I'll ask you for your thoughts. But you read this incredible story about Peter walking on water, and then all of a sudden he turns his eyes away from Jesus and he starts to sink. And everyone will tell you, don't be like Peter, right? Don't be Peter. Don't turn your eyes off God or off Jesus. And I will admit, don't be like Peter. But at the same time, Jesus grabs him by the hand and they walk back to the boat. It's something that we overlook all the time is he walked on water again with Jesus. And I think Pastor Aaron brought it up to my attention a couple times. Imagine that conversation. What was that conversation like? Because the storm is still going on around them, right? Because the wind and waves and all the things are still going. But yet here they are walking through the water back to the boat in a moment. Because I do not see Jesus dragging Peter through the water or even throwing him on his back or something like that. But to use that analogy of walking back to the boat in a sense with Jesus, because life is still around you and chaos is still around you and addiction and the brokenness of this world obviously is always going to be around us, at least until we're in glory. But what would you say are some practical things that young adults can do to help walk back to the boat? The storm's still going, the chaos, but yet we're walking on water with Jesus because we know he's in control. We know that he's faithful.
I think I always misunderstood faith as just being a belief in a thing, right? And so knowledge of is not the same as stepping out of the boat, first of all. So Peter had faith, stepped out of the boat, but then he was distracted. I'm sure he felt like he failed. And that's life. Life distracts us. You will encounter trials, you will have struggles, and you already do, you know this. And they're everywhere. And there's things that pull our attention away from Christ, but what faith is not just believing in Jesus, but living in that relationship, eyes on Christ. And so doing whatever it takes, eyes on Christ. And then walking back to the boat, hand in hand with Christ, And so living in the relationship and doing what that takes. And in my addiction, I was using, pills and trying to ask God to help me, whatever, to make things better, mostly to fix my life. But the hard thing is we can't face two directions at once, right? So I can't be looking over here at my pills and in this relationship with Christ. And so living in the relationship, the application is doing whatever it takes to abandon anything that's distracting me from the relationship with Christ. And that's still today. I still work on that. Is it TV? Is it lust? Is it pornography? Is it pride? Whatever it is that distracts me, what do I need to do to A, abandon that, and B, turn to Christ and live in that relationship? And that's not easy, and it's something we got to work at every day.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry.
No, keep going.
So practically, what is your struggle, and what does it take to do to abandon that? And I can't tell you. For me with pills, I had to go to treatment. I had to involuntarily change jobs, but I had to radically reorient my life around a completely different behavior, and then also turn to Christ. It's not just enough to stop doing something. You have to fill. We do these things for a reason. We do them because we're seeking pleasure, joy, meaning, purpose. We need to learn to find that in the relationship with Christ, because it is the relationship with Christ, him filling us with the Spirit, that transforms us.
Yeah, absolutely. Filling that void that the addiction or whatever that sin is.
Yeah, we all have that hole that we're trying to fill.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. That's great. I really appreciate you sharing that. I think it's kind of a theme, right? The more time you spend with God, the better off you'll be. And I'm really glad that you agreed to share and because last week we had Pastor Caleb. He has a very, he'll share a very normal life growing up, didn't struggle with any of this. And then here you are in the, it's a big deal to have to leave your job. You went to the medical board, almost lost your license, marriage, kids, all these things. So there's this both ends of the spectrum. Yet, no matter where you are on the spectrum, either your life is great or your life was in shambles, like both have the same result or same things needed. And it's time with God and an awareness of who he is in your life. Would you agree?
Absolutely, yeah. James says, draw near to God, he'll draw near to you. And that was the lesson for me, is if in my relationship with God, something's broken, something's failing, is it God? No, God's always faithful to us. Mm-hmm. It's me, and what am I doing? And so whatever it takes to draw near to God, to live in that relationship, that is the answer to my life's problems, is to live in the relationship with God.
Yeah.
So he made us for.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you taking time to share today, this morning. It's early. It is early. But I appreciate it. And you have a devotional book. You could plug it. Now's the perfect time.
Let's see. I'll screw it up. I have a blog, Faith in the Struggle, but I have a book, Freedom in the Fight. Freedom in the Fight's available on Amazon. It is a 365 devotional. And the idea is just that I need to take time every day to point my life at Christ. And for me, I had to be in the Bible every day. I have to be in the Bible every day. I have to be reading, praying, meditating, and writing was the way I expressed that. And so this is out there now, just sharing my own life story of faith and recovery with others, hopefully to help them. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. If you want to pick it up, you sure can. Lulu Beans, I know has some.
Lulu Beans, yeah.
Right?
Lulu
or
Beans
Amazon, obviously. Yeah. We might have some copies at the church if you're interested. There's a good one about a burrito.
Eddie's Burrito.
Eddie's Burrito from the vending machine. Yeah. Well, hey, thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for paying attention for this long. Good news is we'll have Scott back sometime in February with Barb. We still got to figure out what that's going to look like exactly.
That's going to be the interesting one.
Barb has agreed to come in and share a little bit.
I'm not interested. She's got a good story. So
she's gonna do a great job. So we'll let you break up into your small groups. Just remember, it doesn't matter where you are in this world. You could be in a great position or in the middle of the chaos, in the middle of the storm, feeling like you're drowning. It sounds so simple to say right now, but the answer is always going to be turn to God, turn to Jesus, focus on him, walk hand in hand with him, and he will lift you through those things and be able to have your walk with him. And the hope is then you can be like a Scott or be like a Caleb and use your story, use what God has done in your life to encourage others. Because can you share really quick just some of the things that you do with your testimony, some of the things that you're able to step into because of that? Yeah,
so pretty early on in recovery, when I realized the transformation that was occurring in my life, and this is when I knew it was authentic, was I couldn't help but share it with other people. I got to share this, and so I started started volunteering at jail, started going to recovery meetings, started going to recovery homes, and eventually that kind of leached its way into my career. And so so from ER, when I left that job, I was in urgent care for several years, and now I've been able to work in addiction medicine. I go to Project Turnabout at Granite Falls, a chemical dependency treatment center. I go to the jail in Stearns County and in St. Cloud. This is now actually my job. They pay me to do this, and so just this idea of God has transformed me. I have to tell others about that, and I have to, that encompasses every aspect of. Not every aspect, but it encompasses a lot of my life now. So.
Yeah, so great. And that's what we want for you guys. We want for you to be able to, find yourself in God, find who he is, and then be able to share that with people, just like the Samaritan on the well, just like Pastor Caleb, just like Dr. Scott here. And so last verse I'll leave you with is, I believe it's Psalm 53. It says, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. And that's more of a transformational thing, not like delight yourself in the Lord and he'll give you that Lamborghini or he'll give you that amazing house. He's going to give you what will be in the desire of your heart, the things that you want. And just like he changed Scott to where now Scott wants to use his story to encourage others and be able to lift up Barb in the most incredible way and all these things, because he delights himself in God. He turns to God and pursues him more than anything. So I pray that is a truth in your life, or if it's not right now, that you continue to make steps to where it can be, because we always want to grow closer and closer to God. So we love you. Have a great time in your small groups, and we'll see you next week.